Check it out. I am the ultimate badass.
Yeah.
As far as sequels go, Aliens is right up there as one of the best. In fact, it can be argued that it surpasses the excellent first film. And why is that? Well, let's take a look at the second entry into the Alien franchise. Sequels are hard, very hard, especially when you have to follow an excellent first film. A lot of sequels seem to follow the same formula of the original, including story beats. The best thing about Aliens is that it's simply not a rehash of the first film. Like The Empire Strikes Back, Aliens moves the story on, expanding upon what came before instead of giving us more of the same. Aliens also changed the formula, focusing more on action this time around, a clever change of direction. In a pitch meeting with 20th Century Fox, James Cameron famously wrote the word alien on a blackboard, then wrote the S like a $sign. Instead of there being one alien, like before, there are now loads of the bastards. Alien was quite self-contained, in small claustrophobic locations. Aliens is much bigger, bolder, and yet it doesn't seem to compromise on the tension. As I mentioned in my review for Alien, Ripley is affected psychologically by the ordeal that she went through. She's drifted in space in suspended animation for 57 years before being found, and not only has to deal with the fact that her daughter has grown up and passed away, leaving her all alone with no family and pretty much isolated, but now she's reliving the horrors of her experiences in her dreams, or nightmares. The company doesn't believe her story, and she's punished for destroying the Nostromo, being demoted to a lowly cargo loader. But obviously, there is more going on in the background because we already know that the company knew about the alien, labelling the crew as expendable. The first film is akin to a slasher horror, whereas Aliens is an action horror. Alien was slow-paced and took its time to really get going, helping to establish the world, the stakes, the characters, and the atmosphere. Although Aliens doesn't start with a bang from the outset, it still takes its time to set things up. But when the action does start, it is pretty exhilarating. At the start of the film, Ripley is at her lowest. She's all alone in a world that she no longer recognises, as well as being haunted by the events of the first film. Burke, a company businessman played by Paul Reiser, convinces her to join him and a group of hardened Marines to investigate LV-426, the same planet from the first film where the crew investigate the derelict ship, which is now a colony with families. They've lost contact, so the Marines have to go in to investigate. Obviously, there is an ulterior motive here, building upon the first film's main twist. We are then introduced to the Space Marines, who for the most part are a bunch of brash, hardened, macho badasses, complete with all the 1980s cliches that we've all grown to love. The standout being Bill Paxton's Hudson.
How do I get out of this chicken shit outfit?
I do feel that the refreshing thing here is that, unlike the first film, there are more moments of humour that lighten the tone. The unnerving tone from the first film isn't as prevalent in this film, and I would say that it is nowhere near as scary, but there are some really good moments of horror nonetheless. What I would say is that I find that when you have multiple xenomorphs that are killed off more easily, this does somewhat lessen the horror, but it replaces the unnerving horror with more high-octane action, with its own stakes. This doesn't by any means make the film weaker than the first, but it offers us something different. Something that I do find quite refreshing. That said, there are some tense scenes. One of which is the scene where Ripley and Newt are trapped in the lab with two facehuggers that have been let loose. This is revealed to be Burke, who is under orders from the company to bring back an alien. The same twist as before, but it is effective. I mean, if it ain't broke and all that. The benefit here is that we are expecting something born out of the twist from the first film, and it helps carry along this side story. And Burke gets his comeuppance as a result. The Marines lose their numbers during the first encounter, and even more when the swarm of aliens attack their hideout. Ripley was obviously the only survivor from the first film, and you maybe feel that this could be the same outcome again, with the exception of Newt. The director's cut of the film does add a little more weight to Ripley's maternal connection with Newt, with the scene where Ripley discovers that her daughter died as an adult. When Ripley discovers Newt hiding away after her own family become victims of the xenomorphs, she establishes a strong maternal connection to her. Ripley now has somebody to protect, regaining what she has lost. I always wondered if the alien species were a known thing with the Marines, as they question whether their mission is another bug hunt.
It's just gonna be a stand-up fight, sir, or another bug hunt.
The dropship have logos that say Bug Stomper and We Endanger Species. Do bugs require Marines to exterminate them? There must be massive bugs if this lot are going to get stuck in. It's not really clear what this actually means. During the briefing scene, Lieutenant Gorman uses the term xenomorphs. This is a term that has been used for the actual name of the alien species, but I don't believe that this was the case at that time. Xenomorph was a generic term derived from Greek, xeno meaning strange or foreign, and morph meaning shape or form. So xenomorph is most likely a term used to label an unidentified life form. The species was called Xenomorph XX121 in James A. Moore's 2014 novel Alien: Sea of Sorrows, and was officially canonized in Alien Romulus when Rook states the name of the species as designated by the company. I think that the name Xenomorph was used by fans and just stuck, but for me I think it is slightly confusing. Although we don't learn too much more about the aliens as a race, other than that the fact they are a swarm much like wasps or termites, maintaining much of that intrigue, we do learn where the eggs come from. The queen alien that gives birth to the eggs was an insertion into the lore by James Cameron in the script, which sets up that brilliant mother versus mother fight at the end of the film. I do feel that the characters in this film, although memorable, do have a little less depth than the characters of the first film. One-liners and macho actions was a well-used character trope in the 1980s, but it does work here.
Hey, what the hell are we supposed to use, man? Harsh language?
State of the badass art. You do not want to fuck with me.
As I said before, I love Hudson, and I really like Michael Bihn's stoic Corporal Hicks. Michael Biehn joined the cast quite late on into production because the original Hicks, James Remar, was fired. There are still some shots of Remar as Hicks in the finished film. Another nice touch was with the addition of another android, Bishop. Because of the twist in the first film, with Ash being an android that malfunctions, we are wary of Bishop. Has he been programmed with an objective to bring back an alien? Is there an ulterior motive with Bishop? Is he all that he seems? Cameron helps to fuel this by having the camera linger on him whilst he is studying the dead facehuggers. It's a bit of deception to keep the audience from guessing that the real enemy within is indeed Burke. We suspect Bishop, forgetting about Burke. Ripley's maternal connection with Newt helps her to overcome her worst fears. When Newt is taken by the aliens, Ripley is willing to go into the lion's den, so to speak, to rescue her, putting her own life at risk. And this is where we get the reveal of the Queen Alien. Bravo, Stan Winston and co. Bravo. We think the film has ended when Ripley rescues Newt, and then Bishop, with an injured Hicks in tow, rescues Ripley and Newt before the Sulaco drops a nuke on the facility, killing all of the aliens, or so we are meant to believe. Only for a fourth act that pits Ripley against the Queen. This is an action sequence that is iconic.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Ripley beats the Queen in much the same way as she did in the first film, by blowing it out of the airlock. Much like with Star Trek, James Horner follows Jerry Goldsmith by providing a fantastic score that complements both the suspenseful horror and the high-octane action. Yeah, it is pretty similar to the scores for Star Trek 2 and 3, but it's still an excellent score nonetheless. James Horner wasn't given a lot of time to produce the score, only 7 weeks I believe, so did have to cannibalise scores for Star Trek 2 and 3. He later stated that he wasn't happy with how the score turned out as a result. Despite receiving his first Academy Award nomination for the score, Horner and Cameron ended up falling out as a result, but ended up putting their differences to one side and working together again over a decade later on Titanic, after Cameron heard Horner's score for Braveheart. There was even some unused music that was later used in Die Hard. The production wasn't exactly smooth, with Cameron constantly clashing with the English crew, with the film being shot in the UK. The crew would stop for tea breaks, because why not? would finish working at set times, and they didn't like Cameron and producer Gail Ann Hurd, labelling them both as inexperienced. Cameron was also forced to fire cinematographer Dick Bush due to on-set clashes and with Bush complaining about the shooting schedule. I mean, it is any wonder that we got a film this good with all the on-set dramas. Aliens is a fantastic film. It's not as scary as the first, but it is filled with suspense, tension, and action. I absolutely love this film, but is it better than the original? Well, this isn't something that I can actually fully answer. I guess it depends on your own interpretation because it is different to the first film. You can't have this film without the first, but had Aliens been a carbon copy of the first, then it wouldn't have had the impact that it had, and it most certainly would have been inferior. I do enjoy both films on their own merits, but what I would say is that Aliens is most certainly one of the greatest sequels ever made. But what do you think? And where will they go from here? Well, we'll get on to Alien 3 very soon. Many thanks for watching this review of Aliens. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I've been Colm from the Critical Cinema Club. Take care.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.